Hey, g'day people, it's Matt here from Matt Carves. We are carving a standing on one leg Santa today. He's standing on one leg because he was supposed to stand on two, but for some reason it just balanced out like that. So there I am lowering the bandsaw blade. It's general practice that you sort of, for safety reasons, you lower it to the height of the wood so you can just cut the wood. And I guess that's so if you do slip, there's not so much blade to, well, cut your arm off, which is never a good thing. Okay, so I tend to put in a lot of slots into the wood when I'm carving, when I'm bandsawing down the center. And you got to be really careful when you're pulling back on the bandsaw like that you don't catch the bandsaw, because it can be pulled off the tracks on the wheels in the machine, and you'll probably have to buy a new bandsaw blade. So it looks like I'm working fast here, but this is actually sped up, so just be aware of that. So here we go, we're just taking out these blocks now. You can see I'm using a push stick there. I tend to use push sticks a lot, and you can actually, that's sort of like in the it centers groin. Okay, so quite a delicate area, and I can't turn this bandsaw around, so what I'm doing is I'm just going in and making lots of cuts and getting rid of the little bits gradually. Okay, so carving in 3 dimensions is actually quite hard. So I try and work out, like, I think this point here is going to be the highest point. What I mean by the highest point is that beard is going to be sitting on that belly. So essentially, well, it's really hard to work out. So that'll be going around like that, but that beard is going to be going sort of like that. His stomach's still going to be there, and his legs are going to be a little bit further back with his shoes coming out there. You got to kind of think quite differently. What I tend to do is I will sort of like start on the beard and sort of like work that back, and then I might start on these and work those back. I'm using the Kutzall Extreme Flame Burr there, which is a great burr for blocking out. You can't beat the Kutzall Flame Burr, I think. You know, it's just outstanding. It's got sort of like a nice point on there too, so you can get into the sort of like semi-tight areas, but it's just really good. It's kind of, I don't know, it just takes off the material really quick. I've never had a problem with it. I've got it a little bit, the shaft coming out a little bit out of the Dremel there. That's not usually standard practice, but I'm finding sort of like on a carve like this, I need to go across the body quite a bit, so I take it out. Just don't put too much pressure on it, because as soon as you start putting the shafts a little bit further out of the Dremel, more chance of bending it if you're a really kind of got heavy hands. But generally they're pretty good, you know. So anyway, so back to carving here. Just getting the general shape, you know. It's really, you know, I struggle with these 3D carvings as well. I'm not going to do completely the back on this. So I will, there I am. I'm putting in the shoe with a vivid pen, and that shoe needs to go back a tiny little bit more, just the heel. So I'm putting in his pants. So I'm sort of like looking at the relationship to the hand, the stomach. You know, you've always got to just think of yourself and how you kind of stand as well, where your feet sort of like are in relation to your head or something like that. And even like when you're doing wood spirit faces, you can always, you've always got your own face to look at. And I'll give a shout out to Kevin over at Sticks and Stones Wood Carving. Now he's running a Santa, well, Christmas kind of themed competition over there, so go and check that out. I think you've only got a couple more days to enter, but he's got some great prizes from some great carvers, and I'm going to put the links in the description to all those carvers as well. It's just Carve Rob, Ben from Studio on the Lake, Jordy from Carving Fusion. I think that's all of them. Well, and Kevin, he's putting in beautiful work as well. Okay, so what type of wood is this that I'm carving? I'm actually carving rimu, and rimu is a New Zealand wood, and well, it could be grown other places. I'm not quite actually sure about that. I should actually check, and I'll put something on screen if I find out some more information about it. How do I rate it as a carving wood? It's pretty okay. I don't know. I probably haven't carved enough of it to make a kind of like a great opinion about it. I think it's really nice when you're like carving bowls out of it and all that. It finishes really well. We used it a lot in sort of house building in New Zealand and in flooring and that kind of things. It burns easily when you're using diamond burrs, and it's not really strong when it comes to really fine detail. Not like other hardwoods. No, although I wouldn't rate this as like a hardwood. It's but it does have a really nice finish, a really warm kind of brown to it, and it has some really nice what do you call them? Oh, what am I thinking of? Oh, what's that word? Grain. It's grain. I forgot the grain. Okay, it has a really nice grain to it. Okay, so it's been a long week, people. Okay, so what am I carving with there? I'm carving with a Dremel, like long life cutter burr. I'll put the link in the description, but I'm not going to rate it just yet because it's new to me. I've only had it probably about a month and a half. I'm just sort of like judging whether it is worth the money because they are expensive. But I do really like the Dremel burrs for certain things. A lot of people don't rate them, but what I would suggest is you only use certain burrs for certain occasions. So I tend to use Cutzel for sort of blocking out and all of that kind of stuff, and I will go in and put detail in with cutter burrs a lot of the time. So I'm only ever using the cutter burrs for a minimal amount of time on the carving. I'm not going to go out and start blocking out with a cutter burr. And there I am looking with my extremely dirty nails. I'm pointing that out. The nose, it's a bit of a shocker. Look at it, it's kind of crooked. But what do you do in that circumstance? Well, you've got a lot of quite a wood behind the man's face, so I'm just going to take the nose back, and that will mean I'll have to take the eyes back and everything back. But I'm just going to take off the top of the nose down to the nostrils to there, and I should be able to then reconfigure the face. Things don't work out perfectly all the time. You just sort of like adjust as you go. I think the main thing is like when you're doing these kind of carvings is to sort of like leave room for errors when you're first learning, especially when you're doing something new. I sort of go at things really gradually. Now, if I was carving centers... Oh, hang on a minute. I just got a phone call. Well, I could have probably edited that phone call out, but I didn't, so here we go. We're carrying on with the carving now. So what was I actually even saying before that phone call? So you got to leave yourself room for errors when you first start learning. I think that's an essential thing to do, and I think especially like even for me when I'm carving something new, I will do that as part of carving something new. Where if you start carving sort of like say if you started carving centers all the time, you would know how far to go back for each individual kind of like the eye sockets and all of that. So you would go in really fast, and that's where the speed comes from. If you keep on repeating carvings, is you just know what to do and how far to take it. But on something like this, when you're carving it new, you just don't know that. That's what makes these kind of 3D carvings hard. And it's kind of like, it's hard, but it's kind of challenging and fun at the same time. And I'm carving with a fine taper Cutzel burr there, and it's really nice Cutzel burr to get in details. It sort of can go under things, and it's just easy to use as well. I'd rate sort of like, if you're going to buy 2 Cutzel burrs, I would go for the Cutzel Extreme Flame and this burr here, the taper burr, the fine taper burr. My favourite 2 burrs. And with the eyes there, what I try and do with the eyes when I don't want to carve in eyelids and all of that kind of stuff is I'll go quite deep. I'll try and put in a general shape, maybe sort of like I use the eyebrows at the top and sort of like go up on a little bit of an angle and then down again. And I want to sort of go really deep where the eye is. I'll try and get a little bit of an oval in there, and I will also concentrate on maybe putting a few bags under the eyes. So the idea for like Santa Claus is to make him kind of jolly and sort of like his cheeks are raised up, so his eyes are going to be, I guess, squinting, so you can't really see them, and the shadow of the depth is going to hide the eyes as well. Okay, so here we go. Here's the finished Santa. You can see he's balancing on one leg, which is kind of accidental, really. So it's quite nice though, because it looks like he's waving. You can see I didn't quite have enough wood there to carve the back, but I figure, hey, well, he's probably going to be on a mantelpiece or something like that, or on a bookshelf. So we're not going to see the back. Look at his face. Isn't it adorable? Right, there you go, Santa. You've only got a couple more days to go. And say goodbye to everybody. Merry Christmas. I hope you all have a great New Year. Actually, I've got another video coming out on the 24th. Okay, see you everybody. Bye.